You can't decide your next career move because you don't really know who you are, and that makes it almost impossible to figure out your next step. I also doubted myself many times, but I could have saved myself from the anxiety of not knowing whether I'm taking the right decision if I would have known what I'm gonna share here now, so hopefully you can take your decision more confidently. Long story short, I graduated in biology, but actually my first job was as a product engineer. From there, I transitioned to digital products, and finally, I moved to product management, and I found how to overcome the major worries that people have before taking such a decision. A couple of years back, I found myself at a point where I was working as an engineer for a Fortune 500 company, in a role where everybody was considering me a key player and surrounded by one of the nicest teams that you can imagine. But somehow, I was hating everything about that job. During the last year, I didn't really learn anything that I found relevant for my role, and I was also working on a product that personally, I didn't believe it would create any value to consumers, so I started thinking about changing my job. However, my manager really valued me, and it all looked like I was getting closer to promotion if I would stay a bit longer in the role. And this is when the first problem came, because I just didn't know which direction to take, whether it was best to stay there or maybe move to a new role. And this is something that many people struggle with, but I found a solution for myself, which actually is quite simple to implement. The reason I was struggling to take a decision is because I didn't have a clear view at that moment on how my career and life goals should look like. Up to that point, I had been going through the motions and following basically what other people was considering as a success. But taking confident decisions requires high levels of self-awareness, because if you don't even know who you are, how are you going to decide who you want to be? You need to understand what drives you, what are the main things you value in life, and what are your career goals. And a good way to start is by making a list of your top 5 things that you value in life and in your job and rank them in terms of priority. Now, the ranking part sometimes can be quite difficult, but what I recommend here when you don't know what to prioritize over each other is to look at extreme examples. So let's say, for example, that you value on one side learning new skills, but you also value, for example, getting a high salary. Then what you could ask yourself is the following. If you would have 2 options in front of you, a job where they give you a higher salary, but you're not going to learn anything relevant in the coming years. Or the other way around, they offer you a job where your salary keeps the same, nothing special, but you're going to be learning new skills every single day. If you choose the second option, then most likely you value more learning new skills over getting a higher salary, and then in your ranking, you should prioritize that one over the other. This exercise should take you roughly a couple of hours if you have like 100% of your focus on it, but trust me that these 2 hours will be like one of the most useful in your life. Once you have that list, you can look at the options that you have in front of you and evaluate every job option against your values. So let's say, for example, that you value a high salary. Then in such case, you should prioritize the roles that offer you that. But on the other hand, if having a personal fulfillment or having a good work-life balance are more important for you, then you should look for roles that align with those values. In my case, I realized that helping other people is something that really fulfilled me, and that's precisely what I was hating my job because, like I said at the beginning, I was working on a product that I didn't really believe in and I thought it was bringing no value to consumers. So the moment that became clear to me, I started applying for other roles within the company that could fit better with my values, and eventually I was offered a role as a product manager, which was quite different from everything I had been doing until then. Now here's a problem that most people go through. I was fully in my comfort zone and the fear of change completely took me over. The thing is, I was part of a team where everybody was trusting me and I had a manager who considered me a very strong performer. So basically, I was feeling that if I would change the team, I would have to start building my reputation all over again. And here's where many doubts came to me. I was wondering if I would be able to keep my high performance in this new role, and like, would people think I'm a talented employee and would I really fit in the new team? And these are very common doubts that people tend to have before taking a decision, and they can fully paralyze you. To me, the best way that I found to overcome these doubts is basically to focus on the strengths and skills that you can bring to your role. For example, in my case, I was working on an engineering role and I was offered a product management role, right? Which felt a bit scary to make that move. But then I was thinking, well, I have all that knowledge in research and development, which probably will make it very easy for me to communicate with the R&D team. And at least on that aspect, I'm going to bring something new to the team, and I'm going to be probably one of the best at doing that for my team. And so despite I was having many doubts because basically I had like 0 business experience, I knew at the same time that I was bringing something to my role that probably nobody else had in the team, and I could use it to my own advantage. As you can see, it all goes back to the same topic once again, which is self-awareness. Without it, you just will not be able to take good decisions. In this particular case, you need to be able to identify what are your main strengths and your main skills and how you can bring them to your new role. And if you are not able to identify any of them, which, well, I doubt, but let's say that you can really not do it, what can also help is to connect with other people who have gone through a transition in the past. In my case, I reached out to a colleague who had done the same transition 3 years before that, and just learning how he felt through a transition, what were the challenges that he had, but also what were the things that felt easy, it really helped me to remove many of the doubts I had in my head, and it also gave me a very clear picture on what I would be able to bring to the team from day one, but also what were the skills that I had to develop in my first months if I wanted to be a high performer in that team. I can pretty much guarantee that if you increase your self-awareness and you implement the strategies that I was outlining out here, you will also reach clarity on which role to go for next, and more importantly, on what you want to become on the long term. After this point, the problem most people have is that they realize that they are lacking certain skills that they need to apply for the role they want. But that's also why I made this video over here, in which basically I explain what to me is the most effective method to learn any new skill in a short time frame. I'll see you over there. Bye.